Columbia, Alex Lindstrom reported seeing an 8-foot grain-colored creature that fled the moment it spotted him. Near Nelson, British Columbia, John Bringsley was picking wild huckleberries in the woods. Looking up from his berry picking, he saw an 8-foot hairy, man-like creature about 50 feet from him. The creature also had grayish coat of hair. The creature and Bingsley stared at each other for a moment before Bingsley would retreat to his car. The last time Bingsley saw the creature, it was still standing by the huckleberry bush watching him. Near Richmond, Indiana, a 6-foot-tall Sasquatch with white fur and glowing red eyes would be seen in a graveyard. In November of that year, a creature matching that description would be seen by a creek in Decatur, Illinois. August 1961, near Queensel, British Columbia, Miss Calhoun was prospecting for gold with her daughter at a stream in the area. When Miss Calhoun's daughter had went back to their car to grab their lunch, Miss Calhoun had noticed an ape-like creature watching her from the edge of the forest. The characteristics of the creature that most stood out to her was the long arms and sloping pointy head and flat nose. Miss Calhoun aimed at the creature with her rifle and started back to her car. After a little while, the Bigfoot would sink back into the forest. Miss Calhoun would still feel the sensation of being watched all the way back to her car. January 27, 1963, Tulum, California, the local police would receive a phone call from a man claiming to see a 10-foot-tall hairy giant in nearby woodlands. Thinking a bear was in the area, Sheriff Bill Huntley would pick up local tracker Albert Miller and then proceed to the area of the sighting. They were unable to find bear tracks and continued searching. They heard a terrifying scream that sounded like a man in terrible agony. Thinking that someone may have been attacked by a bear, they called out to offer assistance. They would be answered by another disturbing scream that emanated from a different direction than the first. They quickly concluded that the screams weren't coming from a man but something else, and that there were at least 2 of them circling near them. They retreated to their car. They could still hear periodic screams, whose intensity sounded like they were becoming more faint, probably as the creatures moved further away from the area. The 28th of February 1963, near Confidence, California, Leonard Strand and Alden Hoover were flying over woodlands when they spotted in a clearing a creature they described as half bear and half gorilla. Leonard Strand had a camera with him and took a photo of the creature. Unfortunately, the vibrations from the plane caused the image on the picture to be a darkish blur. June of 1963, near Yale, Washington State, Stan Matson was walking along the Lewis River Canal when he spotted a female Bigfoot creature holding its infant under its arm. Matson stopped in place to watch the creature. He saw the Bigfoot squat down by the water and reach into it. Reportedly, Matson believed the creature was catching small fish. Also at this time, on the Lewis River, where it meets the Columbia River in Oregon, another Bigfoot was seen by Mr. and Mrs. Martin Heinrich. When the creature saw them, it fled into the woods. The Heinrichs would tell their story to the local press. John Green, a Bigfoot hunter and author, would see the article in the paper and immediately went to the area of the sighting and was able to find 16-foot tracks that had been left behind by the creature. The town of Toppenish, Washington, 1963. A woman would hear her watchdog raising a commotion as the sun was going down. When she went to her window to see what was riling up the dogs, she would see an ape-like large face looking back at her. The Bigfoot may have been just as startled as the woman because it immediately fled the area. October 1966, near Yakima, Washington State, Mike Corey would see a 7-foot-tall Sasquatch on his homestead. His dogs would attack the creature and get swatted away. The creature retreated back into the woods. 2 days later, Mike Corey would find his dogs savagely beaten to death. He assumed by the Sasquatch. Summer of 1963, near Mount Shasta. A deer hunter fell and injured his leg. The man could barely hobble. He became alarmed when he saw a pale-colored Bigfoot approaching him. The creature stood about 8 foot tall. It watched him for a time and then picked up the terrified hunter and carried him to a nearby road and left him there. Anaheim Lake, British Columbia, 1963. Harry Squinnis was camping near the lake, and soon after entering his tent and sleeping bag, he noticed noises outside. As he sat up, the tent flap in the front of his tent was pulled open, and a giant monkey-looking face looked in. When he grabbed his flashlight, the creature fled. He followed it outside the tent. Harry Squintus then saw that he was surrounded by 4 Bigfoot creatures, who were standing within 20 feet of his tent. Squintus began shouting at the creatures, and they began to slowly walk away back into the woods. In the summer of 1964, at a rest area near Elsie, Oregon, as a motorist was pulling in, he noticed a Sasquatch bending down and looking into the window of a station wagon. When the creature noticed the vehicle approaching, it left the area. July of 1965, Princess Royal Island, British Columbia. A fisherman sailing off the island noticed a Bigfoot swimming away from shore and was swimming towards his boat. Slightly alarmed, he started his engines and went to leave. The fisherman would see 4 more creatures on the beach watching him as he sailed away. Point Isabel, Ohio. Len Lister was driving his future wife home when they pulled over to the side of the road that led to the girl's home. They noticed a large human-like figure approaching their car from a nearby field. The creature moved with a series of bounding leaps. Len Lister switched on his lights to get a better view of it. The couple could see an unnaturally tall, hairy man-like figure covered with yellowish blonde hair, with eyes that showed an orange hue. When the headlights came on, the creature immediately began running towards the car. It ran through a wire fence and tried to grab at Lister. Len Lister was able to duck his grab and roll up his window. Lister's girlfriend felt mesmerized by the beast's orange eyes. The creature bared its fangs at the couple, dropped down on all fours, and went away. May 1967, near Dallas, Oregon. 2 teenage girls saw an 8-foot hairy man-like creature in the nearby woods. The creature followed them for a short time and then disappeared back into the woods. When the girls told their friends about the encounter, 12 of them went looking for it in the woods the following day, and a few had armed themselves with their family guns. Dennis Taylor and Dan Churchill found the creature in some dense undergrowth. They saw it crouching under a tree. The Sasquatch began to stand. Then Dan Churchill shot it in the chest with both barrels of his 12-gauge shotgun. At a range of under 20 feet, the creature fell over, but soon stood up and calmly walked away. 1974, near Uniontown, Pennsylvania. A woman living in a house out in the country heard her dogs barking loudly as if someone was outside in the yard. Looking outside, she would indeed see an intruder in her yard, a 7-foot-tall, hairy, human-like creature. She fetched her shotgun, stepped out into the porch, turned on her yard light. When she did, the creature turned to her, raised its arms over its head, and started walking towards her. Feeling threatened, the woman shot the creature at point-blank range. After a sudden flash of light and loud bang, the creature vanished, leaving no trace that it was there. This is a potential example of the supernatural nature of these man-apes, and would go a long way in explaining the more unusual aspects of some of the sightings, such as not reacting to being shot and instantly vanishing, as well as being seen near UFOs. The Bigfoot phenomenon has usually been thought to be an undiscovered ape-like species living in the Pacific Northwest, as well as other parts of the world. Physical evidence such as footprints and hair samples seem to bear this out. Most people wouldn't think that ghosts and boogeyman would leave physical traces of where they have been. As time goes by, we may be able to get definite proof that we're dealing with an unclassified animal walking in our remote areas, or with something that walks between the world of the spirit and the world of the natural. In 1966, near Brooksville, Florida, Miss Eula Lewis claimed that she had been chased into her home by an ape-like creature with a round head and long arms. July of 1966, Ralph Chambers spotted a hairy man moving through the forest that ran along the Enclot River in Florida. He remarked that the creature had a rancid odor. November 30th of 1966, near Brooksville, Florida, a woman driving down a remote road had to stop to change a flat tire. As she was changing the tire, she saw something moving in the trees. Upon taking a closer look, she saw an ape-like figure covered with hair. Its eyes glowed a weird green color when she aimed her flashlight at it. She quickly went back into her car and waited for a passing vehicle that she could flag down for help. January 1967, 4 teens were parked on a quiet rural road. They became alarmed when something big landed on their car and started jumping up and down on it. The something they saw was a hairy ape man. The creature would look at them before leaving the area. The teens would report that the creature had smelt absolutely awful. July of 1968, near Kinloch, Missouri, a report of a gorilla coming into the backyard of a remote home. The creature picked up a small boy that had been playing in his yard. The child was soon let go when an adult came to his rescue.